بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. Previous to Ramadan, before Ramadan, we were discussing the issues of the different matans and what are they called. So we looked at the marfu', we looked at the mawquf, and we looked at the maqtu'. Here we're going to look at a particular feature of the isnad, which is related to the number of people. Okay, not the quality of people, but the number of people in the isnad. And so there are two kind of terminologies here. One is called isnad al-ali, which is known as an elevated isnad, and the other one is called isnad al-nazil, which is basically called a long isnad. Isnad al-ali, an elevated isnad, is basically the isnad which has the least number of people between an author and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's a rafa'a, it's ulu, it's elevated in the sense that there are um, a few number of peoples, and the opposite is isnad al-safil or isnad al-nazil, where it's longer and therefore it's dropping. Nazil from nuzul is dropping, and that's basically called a long isnad. Okay. So فإن قل عدده أي عدد رجال السند. If its numbers are less, what's its عدده? What is its is referring to? أي عدد رجال السند. أي the number of people in the isnad. Then there are two scenarios. فإما either أن ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذلك العدد القليل بالنسبة إلى سند آخر يرد به ذلك الحديث بعينه بعدد كثير, that either it reaches the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم with that small number of people in relation to another isnad which يرد به ذلك الحديث, which this بعينه, this very hadith is transmitted but with more people, بعدد كثير. So it's saying, so it's in that sense it's kind of relational, right? أن ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذلك العدد القليل, that the isnad reaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with this small number of people in relation to another isnad where yaridu bihi ذلك الحديث, that very same hadith has been narrated with more numbers. So you got one hadith and you have two isnads for it. In one isnad between the author and the Prophet ﷺ, there are three people, and on another isnad between the Prophet ﷺ and the author, there are nine people. The one that has three people, that will be called al-isnad al-ali, and the one that has nine people, that will be called al-isnad al-nazil. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. There are certain ulama. So isnad or isnad al-ali or ulu al-isnad was a feature that the ulama sought after. Okay, the ulama sought after, because if you eliminate the people in the middle and you go to the source, then there are less chance of making a mistake. So, for example, if you are reading hadith with me, Hussein, but my teacher, you're reading Muslim with me. But my teacher, Maulana Abdurrahim Saab, who I've studied Muslim with or Muslim from, he is still alive. So you decide to then go and study Muslim with my teacher. What you have done is you have lessened your isnad to Imam Muslim by at least by one person by knocking me out. This is called isnad ali. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So uh, like Imam al-Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, his elevated isnad or isnad al-ali, these are known as thulathi or thulathiyat al-Bukhari. Yeah, meaning that between the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Bukhari, there are only three people. Okay, Imam Bukhari's teacher, his teacher's teacher, and a Sahabi. These are known as Sulathiyat. Okay, so these are the Isnad Ali. These are within the Sahih al Bukhari. These are more Sahih than the others. Okay, and then his longest isnad is known as Tusa'i. There are nine people between him and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're still sahih, but this longer isnad, the isnad is longer. So similarly, Imam Tirmizi's shortest isnad is Khumasi, meaning that between him and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam there are five people altogether in the isnad with the Prophet ﷺ and the Imam Tirmizi, there are seven people. Does that make sense? So that's the first type of isnad ali, which is that the isnad is directly going to the Prophet ﷺ in that short number of people. أو ينتهي إلى إمام من أئمة الحديث ذي صفة علية, or the isnad reaches one of the imams, one of the great imams of hadith, whose attributes are great, such as hifz and fiqh and ضبط and tasnif وغير ذلك من الصفات المقتضية للترجيح, and other such attributes which are sought after, which gives them privilege over others, such as Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj, Imam Malik, Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, and others, that these are stalwart, great luminaries of hadith, and the qualities of hifz, fiqh, dabt, tasnif that they have privileges them over others, and therefore people, they vie to take hadith from them. So, for example, to take hadith from Imam al-Bukhari, if the isnad was to go through Bukhari, or people start vying for, like, I've studied Sahih al-Bukhari, for example. I'm not talking about myself, so I'm just talking. One person says, I've studied Sahih al-Bukhari, and I've studied Sahih al-Bukhari from Sheikh five shuyukh, and my fourth Sheikh has got, now he has got in the world the shortest isnad to Imam al-Bukhari. So that people basically do fakhr, and people do they are proud of the fact that at the moment in the world they have the shortest isnad to a particular imam. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So rather than then looking for short isnad to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what people are doing is looking for short isnads to primarily particular books. Yeah, when we say Imam min Aimat al-Hadith, we're actually talking about their books, isn't it? Because they're not. So you might have a short isnad to the Musnad of Ahmad, or you might have a shorter isnad compared to other isnad that you have to Sahih Bukhari, or short isnad to Tirmizi compared to the other isnads that you have. Does that make sense? You might have a shorter isnad to the Muwatta of Imam Malik as
Yeah.
opposed to other isnads. That's all it's talking about. Yeah, so in a way, it's talking about our isnads, multiple isnads to a particular author or the book. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
out of the two, of course, the first
Yeah.
one will have the greater daraja, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Discussions of that is coming. Yeah. فالأول, so this one, where the isnad in that short number of people reaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فالأول هو ما ينتهي إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and that is the one that reaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam بالعدد القليل. This is called al-ulu al-mutlaq, absolute ulu. So when we talk about isnad ali, and we talk it mutlaqan without any attributes, would you say isnad ali, or his isnad is ulu, he has a high isnad, or he has an elevated isnad. So sometimes these are called high isnad and low isnad. So he has a high isnad as opposed to a low isnad. Then what we actually mean by that is that the isnad that reaches the short isnad that is going directly to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
فإن اتفق أن يكون سنده صحيحا كان الغاية القصوى. In addition to the number of people being short, if the sanad itself is sahih, then that is the highest of highest attainment. Ghayatul quswa, highest attainment can somebody can hope for. وإلا فصورة العلو فيه موجودة. If that's not the case, then at least the form of ulu is existent. ما لم يكن موضوعا, as long as the hadith is not fabricated. فهو كالعدم, because the fabricated one, it is as if it does not exist. So they're saying two things. Number one is that that the isnad ali, the high isnad or the elevated isnad, it's high with regards to its form, i.e., there are less number of people between the author and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But so not only according to its quantity, but also its quality, and the remaining people in the isnad, they are all thiqarawis. So this isnad is ali kayfiyatan or sifatan and kammiyan. Okay, both both through quantity and through quality. This is what is called ghayatul quswa. But if that is not the case, then at least, so for example, let's say few people in the isnad are not, they might be of hasan or they might be da'if, but still we say still that is good, because the form, the physical less number of people as far as the quantity is concerned, that is still there, as long as the hadith itself is not fabricated, because a fabricated hadith, it is as if it does not exist. Does that make sense? So he's basically then separated that there are two types of isnad ali. One is kamiyatan and kayfiyatan, and the other one is only kayfiyatan. So suratan wa ma'nan, or just suratan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What that basically means is that not all isnad ali will actually be sahih, and a lot of the isnad ali are not also sahih. Does that make sense? So even though sifatan they're not sahih, there is still a semblance of ulu there, which in itself is good. Does that make sense?
Yes.
والثاني العلو النسبي, and the second one is called علو النسبي. Which one? The one that reaches to an imam. وهو ما يقل العدد فيه إلى ذلك الإمام ولو كان العدد من ذلك الإمام إلى منتهى كثيرا. Okay, it's ما يقل العدد فيه إلى ذلك, the least number of people up to that particular imam. So if we were to take Imam al-Bukhari, ولو كان العدد من ذلك الإمام إلى منتهى كثيرا, irrelevant of, even though the numbers between that imam and the end of the isnad are many. So so you have a short sanad to the Sahih al-Bukhari, irrelevant of whether you are narrating the Sulasiyat of al-Bukhari or whether you are narrating the Tusa'iyat of al-Bukhari. We're not looking at that. We're not looking at up to the Prophet. We're just looking at that particular author, Imam al-Bukhari in this case. Does that make sense? So this is called al-ulu al-nisbi. Yeah. وقد عظمت رغبة المتأخرين فيه حتى غلب ذلك على كثير منهم بحيث أهملوا الاشتغال بما هو أهم منه. and the raghba, the shawq, and the desires of the later scholars, the desire of the later scholars. وقد عظمت رغبة المتأخرين فيه. The desires of the later scholars was great in this, to the extent غلب ذلك على كثير منهم, that this overpowered so many, overtook the lives of so many of them, بحيث أهملوا الاشتغال بما هو أهم منه, that this distracted them from that which is more important. Okay, so you will see that there are some people, right, who are infatuated with going and reading with this sheikh this book, and then reading with that sheikh that the same book, then go on reading, and they're always like going all to all of these maqra'as, and trying to get the shortest ijazas. Does that make sense? Yeah. Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani is basically saying بحيث أهملوا الاشتغال بما هو أهم منه. He's actually critiquing that people who actually do that, yeah, and actually go after these mutun, and in the year 2000, in the UK and also in the USA, basically what happened after radical middle way came about, and these Arab shuyukh started to come, Sheikh Muhammad Yaqubi and Sheikh Ninawi and others. There was this craze around learning mutuns, and people would go to shuyukhs and learn mutun, and then go to another sheikh and learn that matan again, but with a shorter isnad. So there was that craze, to the extent that that in itself became a thing of its own. Okay, it becomes a means rather than an end. Um, so then what we basically have is we have two phases of isnads, two phases or two periods of isnad. One is the isnad of the mutaqaddimin, or the isnad collection of them. When we say isnad collection, we talk about the hadith as well, isn't it? Isnad and matan and isnad. And the second one is the isnad collection of the mutaakhirin. And when I talk about the mutaqaddimin, I am, or mutaqaddimun, I am talking about those people who lived in Asr al-Tadwin. Okay, by the 500s, by the 6th century, Imam al-Dhahabi says that all of the hadiths have been collected. So when we talk about Asr Tadween, we are talking about that the hadiths have not been crystallized into books, and the authors are writing them down into books, and therefore to basically sort out the isnad, and to sift the isnad, and to find the best isnad, and to find the shortest isnad, was a thing which was a part of the preservation of the hadith, right? If a muhaddith had a hadith with 9 isnad people, and then he found another sheikh who through him he can get 5 isnads, then it is better for him to use the 5 rather than the 9. This is the Asr Tadween. The Asr Tadween basically had a practical ramification of going and sifting through the isnad and finding the shortest isnad, and that is because the hadith was being documented. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
mutaakhirin, the later scholars, this we're talking about the post 500s, the later scholars, because of all of the hadiths have been collected, yeah, and documented. For them, going and collecting the isnad then became like a collector's item. Yeah. It's like a somebody's desires and shocks. So like the way that people collect coins, right? So you will have a stash of money in your house, yeah, dollars or pounds, right? Whether paper money, notes, or cash, which you require, right? And you need those. Without those, you are not able to function. But beyond that, after you've got enough money, beyond that, what you now start to do is you become a connoisseur. You become a collector of coins, and you started spending your time going all around the world collecting their currencies and putting it and filing it away in a book. And then you even went deeper into that, and you started buying and finding rare coins. And then you even went even more deeper into that, and then you started going into auctions. You started trading with coins, spending millions of pounds finding the rarest of coins, just so that this is a desire of yours that you can fulfill and you can show to the world. Right. This is what happens. Same it happens with items. Some people collect Nike Air Jordans, other people might collect cars. Beyond the necessity, others may collect stamps. Right. If they did not have those and they just had the necessity, right, then nothing will be less. But people just express their desires and their shocks and their hobbies in different ways. You understand that example?
Yeah.
Yeah. Similarly, uh, um, uh, the muhaddithun, later muhaddithun, once they've kind of learned the hadiths and they've got the basics, which is, the basics, what they then started to do was they started to, first of all, it started with mustakhrajat. Yeah. Mustakhrajat, the mustakhraj is a particular type of hadith book where the um, which is used as a support for another great correction, right? For example, the Imam Muslim's Abu Awana has a mustakhraj of Sahih Muslim. Yeah, Al-Mustamli has a mustakhraj of Sahih al-Bukhari. What is a mustakhraj? The mustakhraj basically is, like, if we were to take Abu Awana, Abu Awana, he will take every single hadith of Sahih Muslim, or most of the hadiths of Sahih Muslim, and he will use different isnads than Imam Muslim. Imam Muslim and his isnad won't even come there, so he will provide different isnads for all of those 7,000 hadiths. This is called a mustakhraj. What is the purpose of that? The purpose of that is to show that the original, which is here we're talking about Sahih Muslim, the original has got a solid basis. It's not just a singular book that Imam Muslim wrote, but actually other people can corroborate it that. This is called a mustakhraj. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But a mustakhraj is not needed. People just do it because, like when a book becomes famous, then people work on it in different ways. Yeah. So Abu Awana decided to work on Sahih Muslim. Sheikh Yunus Jonfuri rahmatullahi alayhi basically says that Sahih Muslim is a mustakhraj of Sahih al-Bukhari. Allama Shah Waliullah Muhaddis Dahlawi rahmatullahi alayhi says that Bukhari and Muslim are mustakhraj of the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Okay, so the very first of those kind of like quirks of the isnad, we can call them quirks of the isnad, was mustakhrajat. Okay, then people started to kind of like so parallel, it's not one after the other, but parallel, symbiotically, people started to kind of vie to see who can have the shortest isnad to Imam Bukhari, or who can have the shortest isnad to the Sahih Muslim, or who can have the shortest isnad to Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Okay, then they went on to kind of so other kind of uh, uh, features of the isnad. For example, Imam Hakim rahmatullahi alayhi in the Mustadrak, he basically uses the isnads of Bukhari and Muslim, but finds matan that Bukhari and Muslim have not mentioned. So the Mustadrak is the opposite of the Mustakhraj. The Mustakhraj is using matans that Bukhari and Muslim have used with different isnads. The Mustadrak is basically using the isnads that have been used by Bukhari and Muslim, but with different matans. So can you see that it becomes like a game? It becomes like a gimmick. The religious aspect and the piety is there. You know, obviously, it's not because like the coin collector that they're just doing it for shock, and their kind of desires. There is a pious intention to that as well, and they are also hoping for thawab, that they also are believing that they're doing it because out of the love of the hadith and love of the Prophet ﷺ and the love of the deen. So we can't take that religiosity away from them. Does that make sense? Then you
Yes.
started getting other kind of features of the isnad. So for example, al-musalsalat. Right. Al-Musalsalat is so Musalsalat will come specifically after two chapters. Musalsalat are specific features of the Isnad. So for example, Al-Musalsal bil A'imma al-Mutqinin. So the hadith might be Bukhari an Ahmad ibn Hanbal an Shafi'i an Malik an Nafi an Ibn Umar. Okay, there might be a Musalsal there. Or it might be Al-Musalsal bil Aba wal Abna. The fathers, children are narrating from their fathers. And Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani says that in his thing he has found 14 isnad chains where children are narrating from their fathers continuously. So it's like son narrating from father, from grandfather, from great grandfather, from 14. Then you might have al-musalsal bi ahli al-bayt. Then you might have al-musalsal bil awwaliyat. Then you might have al-musalsal bil surat al-saf. Then you might have al-musalsal bil aswadain. So all of these different kind of quirks in the isnad. Then you might also have something which is where all of the the people in the isnad are women. Okay, or you might have all of the people in the isnad are Hijazi, or you might have that there is a jinn in the isnad. So Imam As-Suyuti has written a book called al-Fanid fi ilm al-asanid. I have it somewhere here. I can find it. Can show it to you. I do have it. It's somewhere in my on my hard drive. I'll have to index it. But I have the book. It's called Al-Fanid fi al-Asanid, which is basically Imam Suyuti collects all of those quirks, those quirky kind of thing that people are doing with the isnads. So, for example, the book that I edited and wrote a commentary on the 40 hadiths of Imam Ibn Hajar called Al-Imta'. Al-Imta' fi Mutabayat al-Sima', right? In this book, Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani narrates 40 hadiths from 40 different shuyukhs in 40 different places and from 40 different sahabis indexed according to Alif Ba Ta Tha Jim Ha Kha Dal Zal Raza. And the focus of the book is not on the matan, but is actually on the quirks of the isnad. Does that make sense? Yep. So you have all
Yep.
of these, because these scholars didn't need to kind of establish the hadith is already established. They express their kind of scholarly skills. It's also a bit of flexing muscles as well, right? They flexed by showing that they can do all of these different types of isnads, right? To the extent that Imam Suyuti wrote an entire book called Al-Fanid. But Sheikh Yunus Jaunpuri rahmatullahi alayhi, so somebody basically, I think, went to Yahya ibn Ma'in, and basically said to him that, Sheikh, I have I went to 100 shuyukhs and I got 100 isnads for the same hadith. And Yahya ibn Ma'in said this is the meaning of al-hakum takathur, right? That takathur, bounty, excess, has occupied you from doing what is really what is a reality. But Sheikh Yunus Jaunpuri basically responds to this critique of Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani and says بحيث أهمل الاشتغال بما هو أهم منه. He responds to this critique. So there's a critique of by Ibn Hajar of people who do this, and he basically says, yes, that's fine. It is true that it can be wasteful to do that, but actually it shows that the person who is doing that today and he's going there, hither and thither, going there and here, collecting all of these sanads, shows that he has the same shauq and the same desire and the same affiliation with the muhaddithun of old. Yeah, so that was his response to it. Any comments before? Talha, brother Talha, have you joined or who's this iPhone 2?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay, barakallah fiqh. Welcome. So, are there any comments before we move on?
Does the Nazil isnad or the Ali isnad, does that have any impact on the authenticity of the isnad? I mean, theoretically, if there's less, you might mention if there's less people, that there's a less chance of error. But when we looked into the different criteria for the Hadith al-Sahih, it didn't seem there's any that this was mentioned in that discussion.
Yeah, so he said this here, didn't he? He says, فإن اتفق أن يكون سنده صحيحا كان الغاية القصوى. That in addition to the least number of people in the isnad, if that particular isnad is sahih, then that is the highest thing that you can hope for, which basically means that there are isnad ali which may not necessarily be sahih, but that discussion is coming now.
Okay.
Yeah. وإنما كان العلو مرغوبا فيه لكونه أقرب إلى الصحة وقلة الخطأ. So he's basically saying, why was isnad ali مرغوب sought after? He says لكونه أقرب إلى الصحة, because this is closest to صحة and there's less chance of mistakes. Why? لأنه ما من راو من رجال الإسناد إلا والخطأ جائز عليه, because there is not a single hadith narrator or there's not a single transmitter in an isnad, but that it is عقلا possible. الخطأ جائز عليه عقلا حكما, and also practically it is possible that this person makes a mistake. والعصمة لله ولرسوله. Right? By dint of being human being, one can make mistakes, and the more longer the chain is, the more susceptible and the probability of making a mistake goes higher. The less the shorter the chain is, that probability is basically reduced. Yeah. فلما كثرت الوسائط, therefore when the intermediaries, the wasita, when it becomes more, وطال السند, and the sanad becomes long, كثرت مذان التجويز, the places of mistakes. Madhan, place, tajweez, mistakes. The places of tajweez, the places of mistakes even grows exponentially. وكلما قلت, and every time the isnad is less, then the chances of mistakes is also less, which is a very logical thing, isn't it? It's a very reasonable argument, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
However, he did say, فإن كان في النزول مزية ليست في العلو. Now, if the longer isnad, nuzul here, if the longer isnad has got a specific quality, imtiyaz, mizya, right, has got a specific quality, a privileging, preponderating quality, laysat fil ulu, which is not found in the shorter isnad. كأنتك for example كأن تكون رجاله أوثق منه أو أحفظ أو أفقه والاتصال فيه أظهر فلا تردد أن النزول حينئذ أولى. For example, if the rawis in the longer isnad, in the isnad nazil, are more trustworthy than the rawi in the shorter isnad, or they have more hifz, or they have more understanding, or the longer isnad, the ittisal of the isnad can be verified quite quickly, apparently, than the shorter isnad. The shorter isnad, there may be some ambiguity because there is an there, whereas the other one has haddathana, haddathana, haddathana. So the ittisal is better. فلا تردد, there is no doubt أن النزول حينئذ أولى, that the longer isnad in that particular circumstance is better. Yeah, does that make sense? So this is the opinion of the Jumhur, that the Isnad Ali is sought after because there is less chance of making mistakes if the Isnad is shorter. However, if there is a longer Isnad and that longer Isnad is better than the shorter Isnad, as far as Adalatul Rawi is concerned, as far as Dabtul Rawi is concerned, as far as Ittisalul Sanad is concerned, then the longer Isnad is preferred over the shorter Isnad. Again, a very rational and logical proposition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he goes to an argument where some people basically said that mutlaqan, longer Isnads are better. He says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أَرَجَّحَ النُّزُولَ مُطْلَقًا. And those people who basically say that isnad, longer isnad la and nazil are better generally than a shorter isnad. واحتج, and they have given the hujjah, the dalil is بأن كثرة البحض تقتضي المشقة فيعظم الأجر. That more research requires more hardship, as a result of which one should get more thawab. Yeah. If there are 3 people in the isnad and you are investigating their conditions, right? And then there's the next isnad which has 9 people in the isnad, then the isnad that has 9 people in it will require much more work and effort than the isnad that has got 3 people. And therefore, working on an isnad with 9 people will give you more thawab than working on an isnad with 3 people. That's the argument. Imam Ibn Hajar says, فَذَلِكَ تَرْجِيحٌ بأمر أجنبي عما يتعلق بالتصحيح والتضعيف. Yeah, this is a tarjih. This is a privileging of one isnad over another using a foreign instrument, using a foreign criteria which has got no relationship with sahih, declaring something sahih or declaring something da'if. We're not even talking about this, right? We're not even talking about this. We're not talking about thawab. We're talking about sihha here. That's another thing. Sawab and ajr and all of that, and mehnat and reciprocation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it depends on your mehnat, it depends on your piety, right? It depends on your ikhlas and your lillahiyat. That's a foreign criteria that you're bringing in, which has got nothing to do. We're talking about apple and pears here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Now Imam Ibn Hajar he's finished the discussion of Ulu al-Mutlaq. Ulu al-Mutlaq is when from an author to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the least number of people, the shortest isnad, that is called Ulu al-Mutlaq. And then we have Ulu al-Nisbi. Ulu al-Nisbi is irrelevant of the from the author to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't look at how many people there are. We're actually talking about the shortest isnad to an author or the shortest isnad to a book. Yeah. This is called Ulu al-Nisbi. Now, he is doing taqsim of ulu al-nisbi into 4 different taqsims. Right? He says وفيه أي العلو النسبي, and from the ulu al-nisbi is الموافقة, البدل, المساواة, and المصافحة. Right? These are kind of an easy concept. The penny will drop, but when I was kind of learning it, it was very, very difficult. I struggled with this quite a bit until one day the penny dropped. And one of the reasons why I struggled with this is because I couldn't understand the taqseem that Imam Ibn Hajar is doing here of ulu nisbi. I couldn't understand that taqseem until I read Imam, what's his name? The author of al-Idah wa Taqid, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. Yes, his name has something to do with flour. Allama Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, he has a book called al-Idah wa Taqid. In there, he's talking about the concept of ulu, and he talks about something called ulu al-tanzil. Al-ulu al-tanzil. And when I read that, al-ulu al-tanzil, and that's when the penny dropped. Because in my mind, I couldn't categorize how these are ulu nisbi. It just didn't make sense for a long time. It just didn't make sense that, well, he's given a definition of ulu nisbi here, but then these don't really fit in neatly with the definition of ulu nisbi. But when I read Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, and he's calling this ulu tanzil, immediately everything just fell into place. So it's about proper conceptualization, proper categorization. What I'm basically saying is that Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani actually is no longer here talking about ulu nisbi. He's actually talking about a third category, which is called ulu tanzil. But for some reason, whatever, maybe he doesn't accept ulu tanzil as a terminology, but it is not actually ulu nisbi. Okay, I will explain this to you, then we will read the matan. Ulu tanzil, or what Imam Ibn Hajar calls here ulu nisbi, is a competition, is a type of competition with the imam that you hold in esteem. Yeah. So, for example, let's say the Sahih al-Bukhari. Yeah. Sahih al-Bukhari. We all hold Sahih al-Bukhari in esteem. Yeah. And we are trying to find the shortest isnad to the Sahih al-Bukhari. I have 5 isnads of the Sahih al-Bukhari, and one of them is the shortest, and I basically go around bragging to people that I have the shortest isnad. This is what normally happens, isn't it? Yeah. Work with me here. You need to. I need you to understand the different premises I'm talking about. So this is what
Yep.
normally happens. Ulu tanzil is basically competing with Imam al-Bukhari and basically saying that I have a shorter isnad than Imam Bukhari itself. And it's a competition not because you have some malice with Imam Bukhari. It's a competition that because you revere Imam al-Bukhari, and then you're trying to show that despite the fact that Imam Bukhari is such a great Imam, I have a shorter isnad for this hadith. This is called ulu tanzil. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let's take an isnad. Yeah. Let's take an isnad. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. البخاري عن أحمد ابن حنبل عن الشافعي عن مالك عن نافع عن ابن عمر. Yeah. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Bukhari's book is called Sahih. Now, this is an actual real isnad. Yeah, this is a real isnad. But so al-Bukhari عن أحمد بن حنبل عن الشافعي عن مالك عن نافع عن ابن عمر. This is called al-Musalsal bil-A'imma al-Huffaz. It's a real isnad, right? But in addition of these scholars being a part of the isnad, they also have their own books. They're also authors. Matta. Yeah. They're also authors. So let's say, what is muwafaqa? Let's say that, so Imam Ibn Hajar, he talks about this. He's talking about himself. He says, let's say Imam Ibn Hajar has got the hadith of right, let's change these numbers about so it will make sense. Let's call this number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, number 12, number 13, and the Prophet is 14. 14, right? Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he says that this hadith that follows the isnad, let's say al-bay'ani bil-khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa. Yeah? From Ibn Hajar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah, there are 13 people in the isnad. With the Prophet, including Ibn Hajar, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is 14. So the entire isnad has got 14 people. Yeah. If we take the Prophet out and if we take Ibn Hajar out, then the isnad has got 12 people. Yeah. Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he reaches al-Bukhari or the Sahih al-Bukhari in number 8th person of the isnad. So are you with me? So before that, there are 6 people, and then the 7th is Ibn Hajar. So he reaches Bukhari at number 8th. Yeah. Have you understood this bit? Now, how would this competition be?
Sorry, Maulana, is there 6 people between Ibn Hajar and Bukhari?
Yeah, and Ibn Hajar being the 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Imam Ibn Hajar is competing now with Bukhari. He's competing with him now. in a way he's kind of flexing, and because he's showing al-Bukhari to be the one that who is the center of attraction, and he can basically have one on Bukhari. It's a type of competition, right? Ilmi competition, good competition. And he says that if I narrate this hadith, yeah, uh, through the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, this very same hadith. So if you narrate the hadith through the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and Shafi, and Malik, and Nafi, and Ibn Umar, yeah,
Yep.
then his isnad to the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal of this hadith is one step shorter than his isnad of this hadith to through al-Bukhari. So when al-Bukhari is number 8 in the isnad, if he narrates the same hadith through Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Ahmad ibn Hanbal becomes number 8.
Right.
Yeah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal becomes number 8.
Is-
So his isnad of that hadith through Ahmad ibn Hanbal is one person shorter than his isnad of this hadith through Imam al-Bukhari. Yeah,
Right.
are you with
Right.
me? So Hussein, therefore, between Ahmad ibn Hanbal, yeah, and
Mhm.
Imam Ibn Hajar, there are one person less. So how much would that be?
Based on before, 5.
5 people. Yeah. So if we count Imam Ibn Hajar is 1, and then we add another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's number 6, right? Then this goes. This becomes number 7. Sorry, not number 8. This becomes number 7. That's why it's a bit shorter, isn't it? This becomes number 8, number 7, right?
Mm.
This number 7 is known as al-Muwafaqa. Al-Muwafaqa. The reason why it's called al-Muwafaqa is because this is the second isnad, the one that goes through the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. We have bypassed al-Bukhari using a shorter isnad, and we then connect with al-Bukhari at the level of his ustaz, which is Ahmad ibn Hanbal.
Mm.
Did you get that?
Yes.
Hussein, did you get that?
I think so.
Yeah. Do you want to explain it to me, and then I will see if you understood it?
I mean, I get the whole, bypassing Imam Bukhari and getting the hadith
Yeah.
from Ahmad ibn Hanbal.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't that just be replacing somebody, replacing Bukhari, and instead of Bukhari going to another student of Ahmad ibn Hanbal?
Yes, but the for this to be a part of ulu, the sanad has to be shorter than the original
Less
sanad.
people in the
Yeah,
chain.
so somebody basically says it can be just be replacing, right? But for it to qualify as ulu al-muwafaqa and not just al-muwafaqa, the second sanad has to be shorter than the first sanad. Does that make sense?
Okay, so putting aside the student of Ahmad ibn Hanbal,
Yeah.
somewhere between that person and Ibn Hajar, there's one less.
One less person.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And therefore, remember he's having a competition with al-Bukhari. So what this is called muwafaqa, means that he bypasses Bukhari, but he joins again in that isnad at the level of the teacher. So what he's done is he has wafaqa al-Bukhari fi shaykhihi. This is al-Muwafaqa. Does that make
Interesting.
sense? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But I don't know. It's interesting how, I don't know, the fakhr thing, I still don't understand, but it's interesting.
Why do you understand the fakhr thing?
Because I mean, if I'm if I'm Ibn Hajar,
Yeah.
I still can't beat Bukhari because
No. It's not. It's okay. Okay. So look at this, right? Who is greater, Tirmizi or Bukhari?
arguably
Bukhari.
Bukhari.
Sorry, Tirmizi or Bukhari? Everybody will say undisputedly it
Yeah,
is
Bukhari.
al-Bukhari. But in the Sunan al-Tirmidhi, I remember I did my PhD on Tirmidhi. In the Sunan al-Tirmidhi, in two places, Imam al-Tirmidhi mentions two hadiths, and he basically says that and Muhammad ibn Ismail heard these two hadiths from me. And he says it as a kind of not arrogant but pride that I was able to contribute to Bukhari's knowledge. Do you understand that? So he
Yeah,
says it as
that I understand because obviously he's a contemporary.
no. But again, the idea is that so the idea is that Bukhari is the better one. That's there's no doubt in that. But it's basically like a banter in the sense that I have an isnad, which is I have two isnads for this hadith. If I go through Bukhari, then my isnad is
Longer.
14 people.
Yeah.
But if I
Right.
bypass al-Bukhari, then my isnad is 13 people, and I join Bukhari. And that's all he's saying.
That makes
That's
sense.
all he's saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, let's say that now the same hadith. So we'll call this isnad 2 or book 2. It's actually book 2. Isnad 2. Now let's say this same hadith that Imam Ibn Hajar has, but this time his isnad is not to the Sahih al-Bukhari and not to the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, but he's giving an isnad to a Shafi'i, yeah, to the Musnad of Shafi'i, yeah. So we're just talking isnad 3 or book 3, right?
Okay.
And there are 7 people in the isnad between. So there are 5 people between Imam Ibn Hajar and Imam Shafi'i, okay, or less. The thing is, remember, the competition is with al-Bukhari, so it has to always be shorter. It has to always be shorter than Bukhari, right? It doesn't matter if it's exactly the same number of people, number 7, as this one, but it has to be shorter than the main. If it's shorter, right, then this isnad is called badal. Right? What it means by badal, these are all the same thing. They just the ulama have made it complicated by giving them different technical terminologies. Badal basically means that you don't join the isnad, right? You don't join the isnad back onto at the level of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Bukhari's teacher, but you join the isnad back at the level of Shafi'i, which is Bukhari's teacher's teacher. That's all it is. This is called badal. Does that make sense? So, for example, let's say we have a highway or a motorway. Yeah. Me and you, Hussein, we are racing. Yeah. And I take a faster route. I go off the motorway and because I know a faster route. But I join back the motorway on the next entrance to the motorway, and I'm faster than you. by taking that detour, I'm faster than you, but I joined back on the next one. That will be al-muwafaqa. I bypassed you or bypassed that part of the motorway and I joined it back again at a faster route. Or if I basically join it two exits later or two entrances later, okay, and I'm faster than you, then this is called badal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as here you are doing موافقة of وافق البخاري في شيخه هي بدل شيخ البخاري بشيخ آخر, right? Because he's getting this from Shafi'i, not through in this isnad. He's not getting it through Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He might be getting it through Yahya ibn Ma'in or Rabi' ibn Sulaiman al-Muradi. So بدل شيخ البخاري بشيخ آخر. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a simple concept. Okay, well, although it took me quite a long time to understand it.
I think that was a good way of explaining it.
Okay, so the third one is I am now, or Ibn Hajar is now competing not through books, but he's actually competing in the isnad. And Ibn Hajar says that I am able to, from me to the Prophet ﷺ for this hadith, there are 12 people. Ibn Hajar being the 13th and the Prophet ﷺ being the 14th. So this is isnad number this is isnad number 4. Isnad number 4, same amount of people, right? So this it will Ibn Umar still will be number 13th here, right? This is called musawa. Musawa. He is musawa equal. He is equal in this isnad as far as the number of people in the isnad goes to that of Imam al-Bukhari. The first isnad, Ibn Hajar, in the first isnad from Ibn Hajar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are sorry, not 14. This is wrong, actually, what I'm saying. Let's get rid of that. Sorry, completely wrong. He's doing Musawa of Bukhari, right? Imam Ibn Hajar has a fourth isnad where in that isnad there are from Ibn Hajar to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, okay, and then 6, 7. So the entire isnad has 7 people. Imam Ibn Hajar basically says that he is a part of isnad where from him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also 7 people. So then his isnad, this is isnad number 4, as far as the numbers are concerned, is exactly the same numbers as the numbers of this first isnad of Imam Bukhari. This is also a type of ulu. You can basically say, but why is this a type of ulu, whereas the numbers are exactly the same, right? The reason why this is a type of ulu is because Imam Bukhari died in 256. And despite dying in 256, he has a hadith where there are 7 people in the isnad. Imam Ibn Hajar died in 852. Despite dying in 852, he's still able to produce a hadith with 7 people in the isnad. This is called Musa. This is why it's called ulu. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Imam Ibn Hajar Asqalani says that after his time, this feature of Musawa no longer exists because people have all died and you can't make that claim anymore.
Yeah,
Does
I
that
was
make
going
sense?
to ask. Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to ask, is that actually physically kind of possible to have the
He
same?
does it. He does it for his time, but he says that it's become very difficult. It's no longer physically possible. But if we were to kind of use it, let's say for example, Bukhari can be making claim to Musawa with Shafi'i, yeah, or
Right,
Ahmad ibn
right.
Hanbal can make claims to doing Musawa with Malik. That is very possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, and the final one, right? Isnad number five. Isnad number five is that there are eight people in the isnad, in this fifth isnad, including the Prophet and Imam Ibn Hajar. This is called musafaha. This is also a type of ulu, right? Why is it a type of ulu? Even though there is one person more than the number of in the first isnad, it is still impressive that Ibn Hajar, dying at 852, is able to bring an isnad which is only one person longer than an isnad produced by Bukhari, who died in 256.
Mm,
It's called
makes
musafaha because um, that one person, extra person, is basically on the level of the student of Imam al-Bukhari. And what do students do to the teacher? They do musafaha. Yeah, they do musafaha, which musafaha is the opposite of al-muwafaqa. So does that make sense? The four types of ulul isnad: al-muwafaqa, al-badal, al-musawa, and al-musafaha. Did you get that, Hussein?
Yes. Just to confirm, the fourth type, the definition is that it's one person more, right?
So this is isnad number five. Yeah, the fourth one,
Yeah.
musafa. There is one person more.
Okay.
Yeah, but because of the date, it's not kind of rationally possible. That's why it is still seen as ulu, but it's ulu with longevity. Ulu with longness of isnad. This way it's called ulu tanzil. Yeah.
Yeah.
got it.
This is the khulasa of me thinking about this for 3-4 years and trying to kind of reading so many books, trying to get my head around it, because for a long time I couldn't get my head around this. Yeah. Even though I've taught this book 3 times.
MashaAllah.
So Ibn Hajar, he doesn't recognize Ulwa Tanzil as a category.
Well, he doesn't mention it. We don't know. I need to go and look into his other books. I haven't actually checked his Nukhbat ala Ibn Salah or his other books. I haven't actually checked them to see whether but clearly here, he doesn't he doesn't separate it as a category, and the editor, by giving these numbers, doesn't actually make it easier for us. It actually confuses rather than elaborate. Let's leave it at that. We will read the ibarat for this next week, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay, inshallah.
Um. So, let me just check something. Right. Okay. So no, I don't. Yeah. So next week we have a class, because I thought that I was going to Birmingham for a meeting, but I'm not. So, yeah, next week we do have a class. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay. Barakallah fiqh. Any more questions before we leave?
Not for me.
Okay. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.